The other thing it heals is the Sunday divide. Again, you know, when you have, there's a division in our church. You know, I know this probably isn't true for any of your congregations, but when I served, some people didn't come every single week. You know, right? So this allows people to be spiritually connected, whether they come once a month or they come 2 or 3. The other divide I would lift up is the children-adult divide. Now this room knows that divide more than anyone. And I have to say, moving to theme-based church, this is probably the area that left me with the most gratitude. So the best, again, the day that I felt we had succeeded or that we had done something significant was when I got, remember that little 11-year-old that I still have running around my house, she was probably about 6, maybe at the time, 6 or 7, and like any good preacher's kid, after, you know, after church we're driving home, she always would ask me, how'd your sermon go? I mean, she'd see me cussing, she'd see me sweating, she'd see me not talking, being angry, working on my sermon for 2 or 3 days. So she'd always ask me, how did my sermon go? How did my sermon go? Years and years of this. One day, it changed. One day she got in the car and she said to me, so what did you preach on forgiveness today, Dad? I didn't tell her I was preaching on forgiveness. But we had, by changing the entire culture, the kids weren't just learning about the same themes and exploring the same themes, but they knew we were too. Even the kids got it, that what we are as a church is a community or family going on a spiritual development journey together each month. That one was huge, just really, you know, huge for me. The other thing, in terms of healing the kid and the adult divide, we started to have parent groups. We called our groups Soul Matters that were on the themes. But we had parent groups and family groups who would get together to figure out how to take that theme home, right? So again, that divide between what the parents were learning and studying and what the kids were was closed. Because now it wasn't just the religious education professionals sitting down with parents and saying, here's what we learned in our RE classes, here's how you can take it home. There was this added dimension of, as you're going deep in your small groups, in your social justice work and worship, this parents group is to help you take it home for your entire family, not just for your kids. You see what I mean? Just fundamentally different. And then the last thing I'd say about the kid-adult divide, or the church-home, or the kid-adult divide, is that we had our religious education professionals. This may not be true for all of you. I know sometimes, you know, religious education professionals get asked to do a lot and already are paid, quarter time and are doing full time already. But for those who are able, you know, this was very valuable in our case. We had our DRE actually run the adult spiritual development groups. At least one, be the facilitator of one of them. Again, the idea of getting people out of their boxes and being able to break down the divides between them. And the theme allowed them to do that. In fact, our DRE was glad to do that, because since the small group was on the same theme that she was working on, it didn't feel like she was being asked to do something different, but she was given an opportunity to reflect and think. So it didn't just feel like this add-on, it felt like an enhancement. The other thing I'd highlight is isolated and overwhelmed and idea-starved staff. I'm sure none of you feel any of those qualities at all. But this is where the heart thing, you know, comes in for me, because especially now in my role, and I'll be talking about this a little bit tomorrow when I talk about multi-site, I don't think we're talking enough about how we are a movement, really not just of siloed congregations, but isolated leaders of those congregations. And this is nothing against any of us, but many of us, right, have to serve congregations by ourselves. Even there's a sense in which we are, even when we're on a team of 2 with a parish minister and an RE leader, there's a sense in which we're sort of doing our own thing. And so there is that idea that none of us, right, are smart enough, I'll speak for myself, I was not smart enough, creative enough, or had enough energy to be able to do all this by myself, to create all the things, to come up with the ideas that I was asked for all by myself. And theme-based church fixes that in a couple ways. Number one, as a minister, as a parish minister, I would lead a number of the small groups. And I know I'm going to get a few amens in this room on that. So I had a couple of my minister friends saying, what are you doing leading 2 or 3 small groups? You don't have time for that. You should be off doing justice. That's crazy to take on that extra stuff. It was a huge, huge time saver, because as I led those groups, because the themes in the groups were on the same things that worship was, by the time I left those groups, I had at least 1, if not 2 sermons already done. Right? Because sitting in those groups, stories were shared, and you have to be careful about that, right? You have to ask permission to share those, right? Some of the most powerful stories that were shared. I also knew, right, what was clicking for folks. So, sometimes, again, the rest of preachers out there, I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes I would get excited about an idea and I wouldn't realize that my congregation wasn't excited about it until I was halfway through it on the Sunday morning. Right? Having the small groups connected to worship completely eliminated that. It was a focus group. I got to see what jazzed people the most, way, way ahead of time, which certainly got me out of that scared, isolated, idea-starved space. The other thing is that it broke me out of my isolation by having me be able to connect with my religious education professional and also my music professional. After we moved to theme-based church and everybody was doing the same thing, I stole more ideas from my DRE than I ever had before, which is a good thing, right? Which is a good thing. She would come, I would meet with her every Monday. Every Monday we'd meet, and she would give me stories about what happened in her class, in the workshop rotation piece. So all of a sudden, too, talking about divides, I was able to use stories in my sermon that didn't just come out of my life or the adult's life, but I would talk about what happened the week before in a workshop rotation and use that as a sermon example. And again, these sound like small things, but I would argue they're just simply transformative. I mean, when was the last time, well, I'm not going to make anybody raise their hands here, but think about when was the last time any of you as preachers used a sermon illustration that was from what the children had done in their classrooms? Now, some of us more than others, but I think many of us know that that's just not something we have access to as easily. And even if we did, it wouldn't fit with our theme. This transforms the ability to do that. The other thing in terms of breaking people out of isolation, I'll talk about this in a little bit later, but again, themes were the things that allowed congregations to share. So at the end, we'll talk about sharing circles. There's a number of sharing circles that are popping up around the country, but there are congregations now who are choosing to be on the same worship themes. So a couple of them have 20, a couple of them have 40. The one that my church is a part of has close to 90 congregations sharing the same worship themes. And so suddenly what you have there as a preacher or as an RE person, not just are you able to lean on the people within your own team, but you can get online and reach out to 80 other colleagues because they're on the same themes as well. On this Google Drive, you have, after the first week of the month, you have 80 sermons sitting there rather than spending, by the third week of the month, again, only a few of us do this, I know, but by the third week of the month when we're preachers, we might have run out of a few ideas and we spend 4 hours Googling, right? This, you hit one button and you have 80, 90 different sermons. Same thing with RE leaders. You have many different worships, children's worships or curriculum you're able to share by being on the same themes. The other thing, and the last thing I'll mention in terms of idea starved, and this was huge. After 16 years in the ministry, there were just some services that just felt a little stale to me no matter what. I started to dread Valentine's Day, Memorial Day, Stewardship Sunday. We called our Remembrance Day memory tree. I mean, even beautiful flower communion. I'd be like, God, is it June again? I do not want to do this, right?
In Rochester.
We didn't even have flowers in Rochester in June. I know. All right, but what this does, it changed. It brought new life back to all of these. So, for instance, in January when we did Martin Luther King, one of the most powerful things was when it was the month of discernment. And that forced me to think about Martin Luther King Day completely different. Not justice, but discernment. What does that have to say about us being a people of discernment? Valentine's Day. The two best themes we ever did during February were what does it mean to be a people of devotion? See how that changes Valentine's? The one coming up this year is what does it mean to be a people of desire? Can't wait to do that one. I wish I was back in the church and could do that. I think a number of you in here are. You see how that changes it? It breaks it open, makes it anew. Memorial Day, the best theme that helped me break it wide open. That was the month we talked about what does it mean to be a people of imagination? And so for Memorial Day, we were able to take the angle on it's especially important to be a religious people of imagination in a culture that when it comes to war is a culture of limited imagination. Changed it. Just changed it entirely. Stewardship Sunday, the best two I ever had was a month of what does it mean to be a people of liberation, and another month, what does it mean to be a people of creation? So think about stewardship through the lens of what does it mean to be a people of liberation, using your money to liberate, or using your money to create. That's just very different than, once again, doing it on generosity and being so grateful that you have to give back. It just breaks things open in a whole new way. That flower communion, the best three there was what does it mean to be a people of delight, a people of play, and a people of revelry. Even without flowers, that was good. All right, so then the last two I'll get at are rightly frustrated music and art staff. I won't say much about this, but some of us preachers have a tendency to maybe not write our sermons or even figure out what we're writing about until Friday or Saturday night. And for our poor arts and music colleagues, that drives them nuts. But with themes, even if they don't know my particular angle I'm going to do in my sermon, they know months in advance what the general theme is. So it allowed them not to be frustrated and allowed a huge amount of creativity to happen. The other thing is isolated and underfunded congregations. Again, with my theme talk tomorrow, I'll be talking much more about multi-site, but this idea of themes within a church, I still don't know why. My daddy is a Christian minister. I grew up in the Mennonite, tradition. But all of us who have Christian colleagues know that every week when they sit down to preach, they have a lectionary magazine.
That's right.
They have 6 lectionary magazines. They give them the movies, the quotes, the pictures, the cartoons, everything to put together. By having themes, we create sort of, if you're willing to be in one of those sharing circles, you have the ability to suddenly create our own version of our own lectionary to be able to support each other. And even beyond that, as I said before, that kind of depth of sharing led us to actually merge, became the conduit that opened up the ability to merge with the Canandaigua congregation. That became my congregation when we networked.